Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jai Nityananda Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paripurjakacharya Vasvashita Shishima Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shila Hari Prince Kaho Shri Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopina Chamakund Radha Kund Giri Raj Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai, Shri Harinama Sankirtan Yagna Ki Jai, Cow Protection Ki Jai, New Govardhan Farm Community Ki Jai. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Oh, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 28. Sopi amsa guna kalatma Bhagavad Dristi Gocharaha Atmanam Yakarod Atma Vishwasyasya Sisikshaya So api amsa guna kalatma Bhagavad Dristi Gocharaha Atmanam Yakarad Atma Vishwasyasya Sikshaya Sopi amsa guna kalatma Bhagavad Drishti Gocharaha Atmanam Yakarod Atma Vishwasyasya Sikshaya Saha Mahat Tattva Api also Amsa Purusha Plenary expansion Guna chiefly the quality of ignorance Kala the duration of time Atma full consciousness Bhagavat the personality of Godhead Drishti Gocharaha range of sight Atmanam many different forms Vyakarot differentiated Atma reservoir Vishwasya the would-be entities Asya of this Sikshaya generates the false ego. Translation. Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as a reservoir of the would-be entities. The Mahatattva is chiefly in a mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. Please repeat. Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as a reservoir of the would-be entities. The Mahatattva is chiefly in a mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Mahatattva is the divine medium between pure spirit and material existence. It is the junction of matter and spirit, wherefrom the false ego of the living entity is generated. All living entities are differentiated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead. Under the pressure of false ego, the conditioned souls, although parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, claim to be the enjoyers of material nature. This false ego is the binding force of material existence. The Lord again gives a chance to the bewildered conditioned souls to get free from this false ego. And that is why the material creation takes place at intervals. He gives the conditioned souls all facility for rectifying the activities of the false ego, but he does not interfere with their small independence as parts and parcels of the Lord. I read the verse again. Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as a reservoir of the would-be entities. The Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. I compiled a few sections and excerpts from Prabhupada's teachings, letters, lectures, purports, especially purports regarding to this Mahat Tattva. It is a very complex and technical subject matter, but it can be explained in a very simple way also. Just like in architectural planning, we have the master plan and make it show that it's workable and can be implemented. So the designers are following certain engineering principles. So they understand the procedure, the process, and then the physical manifestation comes, the construction plans. And then we have the foundation set. And then gradually, everything else comes. The whole place will be built. Thank you. And then the occupants, the residents, will move in. So this is a very simplistic way of explaining how Krishna had the master plan. He's the ultimate designer. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he had his energies, often we call Prakriti, and Mahatattva in a more technical way, unmanifested form. And he had everything planned. So, Krishna is the supreme Purusha, and he glanced over this material nature, which was unmanifested, and agitated what we call the free gunas, the free modes of material nature. And out of that, the false ego appeared. Because the Mahatattva is covered with mode of ignorance, as Srila Prabhupada says in a purport. Mahatattva is mainly covered with this false ego, which comes from mode of ignorance. And by the agitation of his glance, the three modes of material nature manifesting. And from there, gradually, the elements, Srila Prabhupada calls it, and Srimad Bhagavatam calls it, 24 elements. Actually, there's more than 24, altogether 26, but 24 elements, distinct elements, and the other is the time factor and the consciousness of the living entities. So 24 elements, and it manifesting with the Mahabhuta, the gross elements, Agni, fire, Vayu, air, Bhumi, the earth, Prana, ether, and Jala, the water. So these 5 elements are manifesting, just like the foundation of a building set. Then gradually go into the other elements, as Srila Prabhupada explains in many of his purports, especially in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Kapila Dev explains it in a Sankhya philosophy, and how the creation takes place, and how the Mahatattva is manifesting from the unmanifested form, how the Supreme Lord glances. Of course, there's a very extensive topic and quite complex, and every element here, the 24 element, can be analyzed, their purpose and their symptoms and their functions. See, just like the body has senses, there's also functions. And so the Bhagavatam breaks it down into different categories. And I'd just like to read one purport by Srila Prabhupada in a very simple way, put it together in the Bhagavad Gita actually. So just, this was a lecture in 1972, Vrindavan. Mahatattva, the total material energy, is called avyakta. Then, when it is agitated by the glance of the Supreme Lord, the three modes of material nature acts. And by interaction of the three modes of material nature, the whole cosmic manifestation comes into being. Three modes of material nature, first of all, appear, they act with one another, and then gradually, one after another, the 24 elements become manifested gradually. So, Srila Prabhupada gives a very nice purport on this in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, 6 and 7. From all the authoritative statements of the great sages, the Vedic hymns, and the aphorisms of Vedanta Sutra, the components of this world can be understood as follows. First, they are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These are the 5 great elements, Mahabhuta. So, as I said, the foundation setting in with the Mahabhuta, the main elements, the gross elements. Then there are 4 ego, intelligence, and the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of nature. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada breaks it into categories. Sorry. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge: the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Then 5 working senses: voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. Then the above, the senses, there is the mind, which is within, which can be called the sense within. So it's a very subtle form. Therefore, including the mind, there are 11 senses altogether. Then there are 5 objects of senses: smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. And the aggregate of these 24 elements is called the field of activity. If one makes an analytical study of these 24 subjects, he can very well understand the field of activity. Then there are desire, hatred, happiness, and distress, which are interactions, representations of the 5 great elements in the gross body. The living symptoms, represented by consciousness and conviction, are the manifestation of the subtle body, mind, ego, and intelligence. These subtle elements are included within the field of activities. So Srila Prabhupada gives a very clear, concise explanation. Of course, it's very detailed if you study those chapters in the Bhagavatam. And it's difficult to understand sometimes because it's so detailed, the elements and their purpose and how they interact with each other. But the conclusion is, and Srila Prabhupada also gives, that the Mahatattva is manifesting here. Krishna is facilitating the journey of the living entities, the rebellious souls who come to this material dimension to experience the tribulations and difficulties and lessons. And so Krishna created this material dimension, what we call Mahatattva. Often we call it Prakriti also, nature, but had to be designed and had to be manifested from the unmanifested. And of course, the universe manifesting gradually, Mahavishnu, and then come down to each universe, Garbhodayakshaya Vishnu, Kishadakshaya Vishnu, within the heart. So it manifesting into actual clear, visible forms and expansions. The Mahatattva itself is a plenary expansion of the Supreme Lord, just in an unmanifested form. So when the material cosmos takes place, the living entities move in. I mean, this is Krishna's plan. Just like the house is built, we're ready to move in. So in the material world, the spirit and the matter having this existence, although the soul, the spirit, does not belong to this inferior energy. This is an inferior energy of Krishna. But Krishna created a facility for us so we can have this experience here. That's what we wanted in the material world. So we are implicated by cause and effect. So, and we have these senses, so we can perceive the material world, and we can express our material desires and hankerings and intentions, and therefore we're creating another cause and effect. Ultimately, Krishna is the cause of all causes, as he says, Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishnaha Sachitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam, cause of all causes. So we always have to go back to the Supreme Creator, the Supreme Mastermind, Krishna. Krishna knows exactly what is to be done and how to create this manifestation, Mahatattva. And it's a very difficult task. And we can see Krishna is the topmost architect, the topmost planner. He designed, mastermind, an incredible manifestation here. So living entities can descend to this Prakriti and imitate him, act as false Purushas, I call it. Because we're not Purusha, we are Prakriti. We're meant to be enjoyed by his love. And Krishna is the only Purusha ultimately. Therefore, he's also known as Mahapurusha, the Supreme Purusha. We are the Prakriti. In Krishna's perspective, Krishna's eye, we are female Prakriti. We're meant to be enjoyed by him. We are his loving servants, we are loving family, Krishna's family. We are his sons and daughters. There's a loving relationship, we've just forgotten that. Therefore, Krishna comes, as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, that Krishna gives an opportunity again, to revive the original consciousness of the living entities, so we can recover from this diseased condition. Just like if someone gets very diseased, he has to follow a health protocol by an expert and gradually gets well, dieting or exercise or whatever. So similarly, we are in a diseased condition according to the Shastras, and we also feel that, we all know that in the material world is a diseased condition because there's no perpetual happiness here. There's happiness and distress. hatred and love. You can see these dualities, and Krishna also explains in the Bhagavad Gita we have these dualities: cold, heat, happiness and distress. Therefore, a person who's in knowledge, he trying to understand the cause of this problem. Just like if you visit a health professional who studies health properly, he can diagnose the actual cause of the problem. See, there's a problem here. There's an underlying problem here. So we have to diagnose that. So the spiritual master comes in, and he's like the spiritual expert, the master, the teacher, who understands the cause of our disease. You can see there's a cancer in our consciousness. We became illusioned. And as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, one of the first manifestation of Mahatattva is false ego, which is the main problem here. Once we have the false ego, everything comes from there. All the illusions, the bodily conception of life. We cannot distinguish between spirit and matter. And you can see our whole civilization, this whole material world is based on this ahankara. And also Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, and actually I just put this here too. I like to read that. It's a very often quoted sloka, but I just like to read it up to. That's in chapter 3:27. Prakritehe kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma karta ham iti manyate. Translation: the bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by nature. So the living entities are bewildered here. We are subjected to illusions because of this false ego propels us to think and accept things accordingly. The whole civilization, science, everything based on this false identification, ego, false ego, which comes from mode of ignorance. See, the Mahatattva is manifesting, it's covered with mode of ignorance. Just like Srila Prabhupada says, again, I'll just read, it's very important to kind of contemplate on this. The Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. So this explains everything. And one may ask the question why Krishna's creation covered with mode of ignorance. That was his plan, because this is what required to facilitate us. Because Krishna has to create an illusion for us, so we can at least, for the time being, forget him and act out of false ego. That was our original rebellious nature. So Krishna is very kind to us, obviously. But this is more like, there's a saying that sometimes we have to be cruel to be kind. Krishna is teaching us something here. We're coming through this samsara, life after life, suffering from birth, disease, old age and death, and again, and again, and again. Nevertheless, he's also very kind to us because he has the revelations, the Shastras. We have he has his Yuga avatars, Lila avatars, Guna avatars, Purusha avatars, all these avatars obviously coming to help us. They have their confidential reasons also, but mainly they come in to enlighten human civilization. Krishna himself enlightening Arjuna. Arjuna asking relevant questions. And we can see this chapter here, for example, which is very interesting. Vidura is consulting Maitreya about this fundamental understanding, creation, Mahatattva, because we, as readers, we need to understand these things. And Srila Prabhupada emphasizes in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, many purports, that one should actually have some understanding, this clear understanding. about this material cosmic manifestation, at least in a simplistic way, the elements and the order of manifestation and the reasons we are here. It's not just happened, it is actually planned and gradually manifested. And the three modes of material nature has a matrix, it's constant interaction we can see. And the living entity is part of this covering potency. We are covered with Krishna's potencies. Therefore, we are helpless actually. The living entities, the jivas, are helpless in the material world. They need a superior guidance. Someone actually can give us a hand. It's like someone drowning in the ocean. You need a hand. So we're drowning in the ocean of birth, disease, old age, and death. And it's a very deep philosophical point, but at the same time very simple to understand. If you study Bhagavad Gita regularly, Krishna explains these simple fundamental truths to Arjuna. And Arjuna, as a receiver of knowledge, he's realizing and he's acting on it. So, of course, Vidura and Maitreya in this chapter, they're greatly exalted personalities. And they also questioning and answering, and obviously the purpose of the Bhagavatam to help the conditioned souls, help the sincere seekers who are trying to understand these transcendental meanings, esoteric teachings. What is going on? Why we have this Mahatattva in the first place, and why we are here in the first place. So this is in a simple way to understand the gradual manifestation of the material world and our journey here. But Krishna, like I mentioned earlier, that Krishna comes and he reveals a particular knowledge for the time, place, circumstances, and different, like we call yuga avatars. And different yugas, there are different processes, yagnas, recommended process. And we are very fortunate, of course. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared and gave us a very powerful formula for this age. So we can easily revive our original consciousness. And for example, like I said earlier about the example of architecture and how a building is designed, and there's a master plan, there's approvals, and then the construction plan, the practical application and making of these things. Only an expert can understand this, the whole process. Living entities, I mean, in this case, the residents or the occupants who move into that building, they don't necessarily understand what happened here. So the living entities in general don't have the understanding unless they hear from bona fide sources that there is a system here, there's a design here, an intelligent design, for a reason. Not just accidentally, but for a reason. Nothing is accidental here, everything is planned and designed. So the architect knows all the building codes, the systems, so you can see, while this had been designed, and there's a purpose, and there's a reason behind this. So this Mahatattva is also like that. In a macro scale, it's an incredible scale. And the whole, not only one cosmos, but the entire cosmic manifestation is coming out of Mahatattva. And which is only 1/4 of the entire creation of the Supreme Lord. So this material world is like reserved for those rebellious souls who want to experience this dimension. So, and they have to adapt to this. And Krishna comes very kindly, he's enlightening us, trying to understand your true position. You're not the body. You are an eternal soul, and you have an eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You have a connection with Him, Nitya Swarupa, original connection also. And so, and He comes time to time. There's so many revelations, the entire Vedic knowledge, Srila Vyasadeva, the Sampradayas. Krishna is always ready to help us. He's always ready to help us. And the teachers are also there. The great masters, Mahabhagavata teachers. So, and Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that Krishna is very kind to us. He's giving us opportunities again, 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 again. Because this is no way out of this Mahatattva. This is a very difficult and perplexing situation. Only by a superior help one can get out of this ahankara. And as Krishna says, the living entity is bewildered. So they act according to false ego, ahankara. And they cannot help themselves unless a divine help. And the Lord Himself, or a Mahabhagavata personality, a great devotee, can uplift that person and help the person, enlighten them. So this is a simple way to understand this purport. This is my own realization. But of course it's very deep and extensive. If you want to get into more study, more detailed study, mainly Kapila Dev's, apart from the creation, and Kapila Dev explains the 24 elements, Sankhya philosophy. Srila Prabhupada gives many lectures on this topic. Very philosophical also, because there's a reason Mahatattva manifested here. And Krishna's purpose, everything is there. So this is what I can say about this purport. I'll just read the verse again. Srila Prabhupada. Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as a reservoir of the would-be entities. Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead, with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. So as I mentioned earlier, there are 24 elements, and they're manifesting gradually. And the last two is the time factor and the state of consciousness of the living entities, the contamination. So this, obviously starting with the gross elements, Mahabhuta, and building up. And living entities take birth in this world so they can experience their journey. So this is a material world, we call. There are many Sanskrit names for this, but in English we call it the material world. And Mahatattva, and Mahatattva is manifesting to gradually very distinct universes. All the elements are assembled, there's interaction between the elements, interaction between the three modes of material nature, the false ego comes in, and once the false ego there, action takes place, cause and effect. The living entity is acting out of false ego. And Srila Prabhupada gives very nice classes and lectures on how the scientists carried away by the false ego. They take claims and credit for themselves on so many so-called discoveries. The laws of nature are already set. They just claim to discover this, discover that, but it's already there. The laws of nature is there. No one can create, only God can take credit for it. He's created these laws of fine laws, physical laws, subtle laws. Nature is there. And they may realize something through their discoveries or experimentations, but no one has the right to take credit except Krishna. Krishna is the supreme creator. So everything is there. In the Shastras, here we can see this chapter goes gradually explains the Mahatattva, and the interaction of the elements, the working senses, the knowledge acquiring senses. So very nice chapter, very systematic. And to fully understand this, we have to go gradually. This is what I can say. Are there any questions or comments? Prabhu, yes?
Thanks for the last word. It's sort of difficult to understand that on one hand we hear that the Mahatattva is a linear expansion of Krishna, but then cheating the mode of ignorance.
Yeah. You see, I kind of mentioned earlier that this question will come up, how come Krishna's all this plenary expansion and is a conscious, like Srila Prabhupada says also here in a verse itself, Vyasadeva, it is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. My understanding is that, like I said about the design, a plan. So Krishna creates these, he has created these gunas for a purpose. So appear to be covered, but he himself as a plenary portion is not covered. He is the design, just like an architect who puts a master plan together. He understands, he creates certain things. Just like in the Mahabharata, we see when Mayandanava was requested to design the assembly hall for Duryodhana, he was requested to create those illusions. Of course, he knew he is not subjected to the illusions, but he just created that illusion. So Duryodhana can be ridiculed. So Krishna is the ultimate creator of all this, and he creates illusions. That's what needed here. So obviously, to start the false ego, you have to create that platform of mode of ignorance, tamaguna. And from there, gradually, the Raja already action takes place. So it comes a bit later. So Raja already manifesting, and the senses are there, and action takes place. Raja Guna, action takes place. You can see this whole world is not just mode of ignorance, it's the free interaction of the three modes of nature. There's ignorance, and then obviously goodness is there. There's a matrix, there's constant kind of rival between these gunas. So Krishna created these illusions, apparent mode of ignorance, but he's not covered by them. Although it's a plenary expansion, he just appears to be that way. And only an illusionist, a magician, can understand all this is all just covered to create that illusion. So Krishna is the ultimate creator. He knows exactly, and that's what we needed. He facilitates it. So he facilitated this, and everything is there. All the tools there, all the senses are there, and our journey, and our experiences. And once the action takes place, what takes place? Cause and effect immediately. So the living entity is implicated in cause and effect, creating cause, effect, and gets worse. Because this is when sinful activities take place due to the impelled by mode of ignorance and Rajaguna, obviously. Unless they find, like I said earlier, and Srila Prabhupada also says, unless Krishna comes personally, either through the teachers, the Mahabhagavatas, the Shakyaveta avatars, or he himself in one of the avatars, the living entities have no hope. They're completely covered. There's so much covering going on here. So, but Krishna is very kind. Prabhupada says in that. Just let me read again. You see, this false ego is the burning force of material existence. The Lord again gives a chance to the bewildered conditioned souls to get free from this false ego. And that is why the material creation takes place at intervals. He gives the conditioned souls all facilities to rectifying the activities of the false ego, but he does not interfere with their small independence as parts and parcels of the Lord. So, of course, Krishna is there to help, and we can see Very kind lordships are here, Srila Prabhupada and Shastras and the Vaishnavas. We're getting help on a daily basis. Of course, the devotees are very fortunate because at least we could figure out this is, this is the right place to be and the right path. But so the illusions are there, but Krishna's coming and helping us, trying to get out of these illusions. He's not cruel, but the lessons are there. So the illusion had to be taken place. We are living entities coming to this material world. So that's how I can explain it to you, Prabhu. I'm sure there's a deeper realizations on this, but this I understand that Krishna is the master plan. He's got a design here. He's creating these illusions, coverings, even more of ignorance, but he himself is not covered by this. Although the Mahatattva is a planetary expansion, so he's not in a mode of ignorance. He's just manifesting this. He designed this, so the mechanism can take place. There's a mechanism, so he pushes the button and things start moving. This creation gradually manifests, gradually. And then the material world is manifesting for its purpose. And what is the purpose? Anyone knows the purpose of this? Not a good one. It's a difficult one because you can see the living entities are suffering here. But that suffering is necessary just to wake us up. It's not, Krishna is very kind to us. His kindness is manifesting in so many ways. But sometimes the pain and suffering is necessary to remind and wake up the living entities. It's not, the laws of karma is designed that way that we get purified. It's not God is not cruel. We are, actually Srila Prabhupada gave a very nice lecture on this. Even the lecture is titled as Suffering is Our Creation. God is not punishing us, we're punishing ourselves. Because like Srila Prabhupada says here in the last sentence that Krishna is not interfering in our mind of independence. So we have to be very careful. That's why we have to use intelligence and hear about the Lord and His activities, His creations, and how He's manifested this world. Some kind of understanding why this material world manifested. In a very simple way to understand. But like I said, there's very deep philosophy behind it. And very extensive explanation by Srila Prabhupada also in different purports, lectures. You can find in the database if you want to go a bit deeper. Each senses, by the way, have a reason. And this whole universe is covered accordingly with these elements. And we can see the gross elements, so we can sense it. So we have our body, see, we have earth element, we have water, fire, Jataragni, fire of digestion, we have all the coverings, we have prana, we part of this, we have air, vayu. So these 5 elements interacting all the time. And everything in this world is made of these mahabhuta, and of course the subtle layers and elements coming. Buddhi, manasa, the mind, ahankara, these are very, very strong binding force. And no one can get out of this unless they get a divine help. Some or other, some knowledge, some revelations. And this is when Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada is revealing the secrets of this creation, how this creation takes place. And this is also my understanding why Vidura asking these questions, inquiring from Maitreya, instead of going to the highest topic right away. He was ready for it, but for us as readers, as students of bhakti, devotional service, we go gradually, cosmic manifestation, our material bodies, who we are, spirit and matter, distinction. So then gradually, as you read the chapters, gradually gets higher, more deeper, esoteric, and goes to the ultimate prema, loving Godhead. See? But it's a gradual study. And we study gradually. We start with the Bhagavad Gita, the fundamental knowledge, and then gradually rise up. We study Srimad Bhagavatam, and we learn the seed slokas. So because some of the seed slokas explain everything, then you can go on again, and recommend that one should study under a teacher to properly understand these things. Because otherwise we can misunderstand and speculate. There's no room for speculation in spiritual life. So we're following a transcendental authority here, a divine authority, and ultimately it goes back to Krishna himself. He's the cause of all causes, sarva karana karanam. And everything has a reason. So we may not understand things at this stage in every way, but gradually we understand them, gradually. As we get purified, our senses become more receptive, we can perceive Krishna. At this stage, we can only see him by hearing about him, hearing about him, hearing the revelations, hearing from devotees. So then we can feel his presence, his omnipotency. God is omnipotent, transcendental, beyond our sense perception. But we can see him by hearing about him. So this is when Krishna is so kind, helping us. Again. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.